How did a small, skinny player become a legend at the biggest club in world football? That's what we'll find out today on Football Historian, as we look at the incredible life and career of Luka Modrić. From a refugee in war-torn Croatia to developing his unique football abilities and becoming one of the best in the world, this is the history of Luka Modrić. Luka Modrić was born on the 9th of September 1985 in Zadar in the Soviet Republic of Croatia, which was within the Soviet Federal Republic of Yugoslavia. His mother and father worked in a knitwear factory, and growing up, Modrić spent most of his time with his grandfather Luka, the man he was named after. They lived in a stone house at the top of a village where the young Modrić would help shepherd goats. It was far from a safe place though, with signs warning of landmines, but the young Modrić enjoyed life in the mountains with his grandfather. However, things changed when war broke out across the region against Serbian forces. Modric's grandfather was killed and the family had to flee, heading to a refugee hotel in Zadar, where he and his family lived for 7 years. Meanwhile, his father joined the military to fight. Despite being surrounded by war and tragedy, Modrić developed an early interest in football, playing with the ball down in the corridors of the hotel from morning to night. He'd also play out in the hotel car park with the other kids, as the adults would try to make sure they weren't too aware of the realities of war. Modrić started school and joined a sporting academy. His interest in football began to grow, and despite the fees, his family, with help from his uncle, managed to pay the fees, hoping Modrić would have a chance at a better life. Growing up, Luka Modric's biggest hero was Croatian legend Zvonimir Boban, a graceful and stylish midfielder who could dictate games. It's easy to see just how much Boban's style of play would influence Modric's own way of playing. Between 1991 and 1995, the region was subjected to heavy fire from Serbian forces, and although this was an awful time for Modrić to live through, he says it made him tougher and able to deal with anything. Modrić and his friends would often have to run from training back to shelters when the shells started falling. Modrić had talent and joined the Zadar youth team. It was a small club, and other clubs who looked at Modrić, like #Split, felt he was far too small and slight to make it at the highest level. Modrić persevered through, and his hard work and determination eventually paid off when he was 15. Modrić joined the Dinamo Zagreb youth team. Dinamo were a huge club with a big reputation in Europe. Modric's talent seemed to compensate for his lack of height and his skinny frame. He displayed real intelligence on the pitch too, able to keep him one step ahead of opponents at that level. At 18 years old, Modrić was sent out on loan to Zrinjski Mostar in the Bosnian Premier League. Fans there wouldn't have expected much, but Modrić had a superb season for them, scoring 8 goals in 25 games. Modrić loved his time there, saying it helped to make him a tougher player in such a physical league. Mostar fans still count Modrić as a legend there. The following season, he had another successful loan with Inter Zapresic in Croatia. After returning to Zagreb, Modrić made his debut at 19 years old against NK Osijek. The club saw the player's potential, signing him to a 10-year contract the following season, where he began to establish himself. With 7 goals in his first season, he helped Dinamo win the league. He also caught the eye of the national team, making his debut for Croatia. The following 2 seasons, he helped Zagreb win the title 2 more times, as well as domestic cup competitions. With Zagreb regularly appearing in European competitions, it also meant that Modrić was catching the eye of clubs across the bigger European leagues. A move abroad felt inevitable. The question was to who? Man City and Newcastle were eyeing up the young Croatian midfielder, but Tottenham swooped in, making him their first signing of the summer in 2008. Ironically, this was shortly after Tottenham had won the League Cup earlier in 2008. It's still the last trophy they've won. His Tottenham debut came against Middlesbrough in the first game of the season, but Spurs lost the game. Modrić had a tough start, as the physicality and speed of the Premier League initially seemed to cause difficulties as well as injuries. The media and some fans were writing off the Croatian. Little did they know. By the end of the first season, he was beginning to settle and adapt to the frantic nature of the Premier League. In the 2010-2011 season, Modrić seemed to step it up to a whole other level. He was now the man who made Tottenham tick in midfield. Everything went through Modrić, averaging the most passes per game in the team and rarely misplacing a pass. By the end of the season, he was voted Tottenham's Player of the Year, but some, including Sir Alex Ferguson, felt that Modrić should have been voted as the Premier League Player of the season. Clubs were eyeing Modrić, and he was starting to hope for a move to a big club. Chelsea were close to signing him in the January transfer window of 2012, but it fell through. One of his best games during the 2011-2012 season came as Tottenham smashed Liverpool 4-0 and Modrić ran the game. It might just have been the game which caught the attention of a big club in Spain. Real Madrid came calling the following summer, and Modrić joined the biggest club in Europe, having established himself as one of the Premier League's very best. He made his debut 2 days later, appearing as a substitute, and of all the clubs to face off against first, it was Barcelona in a cup final. Real won the match, and Modrić had his first silverware at the club within 36 hours of signing up. Such a great start, but things were tough initially for Modrić. A midfield of Xabi Alonso, Sami Khedira, and Mesut Ozil meant that Modrić struggled to get started, or he'd have to play out of his position. He got his first goal in La Liga against Real Zaragoza, but his struggles continued. Real played Manchester United in the Champions League in the quarter-finals. After drawing the first leg 1-1, United were 1-0 up in the second leg. Modrić scored an insane goal to bring the game level, and it gave Real the momentum to go on and find the winner. The game is seen as the major turning point for Modrić at Real Madrid, with his form improving toward the end of the season, despite Real not winning the Champions League or La Liga that year. Next season, Carlo Ancelotti came to the club and helped establish Modrić as one of the best in the division. Modrić was played in a more natural position to him, becoming a mainstay in central midfield. At the end of the season, Real won the Champions League, beating their rivals Atletico. It was a Modrić corner which found Sergio Ramos in the last minute to equalize and take the game to extra time, where Real destroyed Atletico, winning 4-1 in the end. Over the next few seasons, Modric's influence in Madrid's midfield was clear to see. He was making them tick and forging great partnerships with players like Alonso and later Toni Kroos. In the 2017-2018 season, Real Madrid were about to do something incredible when they won the Champions League for the third year in a row, with a huge helping hand from the immense consistency of Modrić and Kroos, who made up arguably the best centre midfield in world football. By the end of that year, Modrić was awarded the Ballon d'Or during a period where it seemed impossible for anyone besides Ronaldo or Messi to win it. This was how good Modrić had become. Meanwhile, in the heart of Croatia's midfield, Modrić was Mr. Consistent, even though the national team were finding it tough in his early years in the team. Going into the 2018 World Cup, the highlight of Modric's Croatian career had been a quarter-final in the 2008 Euros. Croatia had a superb World Cup in 2018 though, going all the way through to the final where they met France. But sadly for Modrić, who had been one of the tournament's best players, they lost. In the 2022 World Cup, Modrić was superb once again. Even at 36, he was bossing games. He helped Croatia progress right up to the semi-finals, but they fell short, losing 3-0 to Messi's Argentina. Modrić had helped Croatia overachieve hugely, even in his mid-30s. At the end of the 2023-2024 season, Luka Modrić was still one of the key men for Real Madrid, helping them to win La Liga, the European Super Cup, and the Champions League. It was Modric's fourth La Liga title and his sixth Champions League trophy, which is a joint record. Even as he approaches his 39th birthday, his impact on the pitch is just as it's been for most of his Real Madrid career. He's the conductor of a great orchestra. It's the ability to make things look effortless that seems to give him lasting powers at an age where the physical demands would be beyond players. Modrić has won countless individual trophies, almost being a yearly recipient of the Croatian Footballer of the Year award. And in total for Real Madrid, he's won 27 trophies in his 12 years with the club. Just how long can Modrić keep going with Real Madrid? How much more can this sensational baller achieve with the Giants? Drop us a comment and be sure to like and subscribe. We'll see you on the next one.